Hi, I'm Jamila Hunt, and I'll be talking about the rabies virus. I chose this virus because I thought the progression of it sounded interesting. This virus is from the Listeria family, which is a group of viruses that like to attack mammals, and they are neurotropic, meaning they prefer to attack the nervous system. There are two modes of transmission. One is mammal to mammal, which can be animal to animal or animal to human, which is the most common way humans can be infected. That is typically from an animal bite or or being in contact with an animal's saliva to an open wound or cut. The second way is from human to human, although this is very rare and only occurs in situations like an organ or tissue transplant. This is a graph of what animals spread the most rabies in the US. As we can see here, the highest occurrence is skunks. This is mostly because more people are vaccinating their pets, especially their dogs. In the 1960s, dogs used to be the highest spreader, but after a campaign, almost every dog is vaccinated. You can see there is still a little bit of green because cats are thought to have been less susceptible, so less people or cat owners will not vaccinate their cats. Skunks also, as you can see, have a significantly higher percentage of rabies occurrence compared to all the other animals. So even though skunk encounters are rarer than other animal encounters, when you encounter one, it is more likely to have rabies than, say, a raccoon or a bat. This is a map of what the most popular animal in each area is for spreading rabies. Rabies kills about 70,000 people every year, although this number could be significantly reduced by increasing the amount of people who vaccinate their pets. There are programs that also help vaccinate wildlife animals. This rabies occurs everywhere except Antarctica. Some places like Australia also don't have rabies, although they do have a very similar version, but it's only transmissible between bats. There are three stages of the virus. The first is incubation, which is the period after you get bitten but before you start to show symptoms. This typically takes between 1 to 3 months, but can be as quick as a few days or take years. Since it's replicating in your muscles, with the goal of getting to your nervous system, the closer the bite is to your brain, the shorter the incubation period is. The second stage is prodromal, which is when your symptoms start. This means that the virus has started to make its way into your nervous system, and this is when your symptoms start. These typically resemble symptoms of a flu, like headache, fever, muscle ache, and tingling or burning at the bite site. Once these symptoms start to show, there is only a few days before it reaches the brain, and stage 3 starts, which is neurological symptoms. These are the symptoms most people associate with rabies. At this point, the virus is in your brain and has started replicating and will go back out to the rest of your body so that it can spread to another person. Most notably, your salivatory glands. It will cause excessive salivation and muscle spasms in your throat. That way, it can be concentrated in your mouth and it prevents you from swallowing with the muscle spasms, so it can't be diluted. This virus also causes your brain to expand, which can damage it and cause behavioral and neurological issues like violent outbursts, anxiety, depression, partial or full paralysis, and many other things. There are two types of rabies: paralytic and furious. Furious is significantly more common. Sorry. Furious is significantly more common than paralytic, although they can both happen in humans and animals. Paralytic rabies is defined by partial or full paralysis, and it's seen as much calmer, so it can be sometimes mistaken as a different disease, and it typically ends in the person going into a coma and then dying, while furious rabies is defined by its violent outburst and aggression. Just because someone has paralytic rabies doesn't mean they can't experience the symptoms of furious rabies, and vice versa. Both typically have excessive salivation and hydrophobia, but you can have furious rabies and experience paralysis. You can have paralytic rabies and experience seizures. There is no official treatment for rabies. When symptoms occur, it is almost always guaranteed that you will die. A few people have survived this with the Milwaukee Protocol, which is basically when you're put into a coma so that your brain is protected while they boost your immune system to help you fight off the virus. Although this is very, very expensive and only has a 14% success rate, and the people who have survived are thought to have already had a genetic advantage or to have encountered a weaker version of the virus. And some people who survived were neurologically impaired forever. So the main treatment for most people is just an immunoglobulin shot if they were bit. So as soon as you're bit, you go to the doctor, you get an immunoglobulin shot, at the site of your wound, and then in like your arm or somewhere, you get a vaccine. This vaccine is split into 3 parts: one on the first day, one on the third day, one on the 7th day, and one on the 14th day. If you're immunocompromised, there is a 5th shot on the 28th day. Although the best treatment is prevention, so it's best to avoid all wild animals, even if they don't seem aggressive, and to make sure all the pets that you hang around are vaccinated. And if you're going to have a job where you're at a higher risk of getting rabies, like at a vet clinic or in a zoo, it's best to get the vaccine before you start working. The first known mention of rabies was in 500 BC by a philosopher named Demetrius, and although the rabies has been around for a very long time, the first cure wasn't made until 1885 by Louis Pasteur, where he made a vaccine for a boy who was bitten by a rabid dog. This was 25 shots, 3 on the first day, 2 on the second day, 2 on the third day, and then 1 each day after that for 18 days. These were given into the abdomen and could sometimes be painful. Each shot was stronger than the previous to help build immunity, and the vaccine was active. So if you were to get it and you didn't have rabies, there was a chance of you getting rabies because of the shot. Although in 1908 an inactive version was made, so there was no risk of getting sick with the vaccine anymore, and it started being encouraged to have your pets also get vaccinated. In 2004, the Milwaukee Protocol was invented because of a girl named Jenna who was bitten by a bat. She was the first person to survive the virus without a vaccine. Um, Not so fun fact, India has the highest cases of rabies, taking up 30 to 60% of rabies deaths worldwide, and this usually occurs in children because they are less likely to report it or more likely to go unnoticed when they're bitten. These these are the questions. How, what factors can significantly impact how long the incubation period is for rabies? The answer is how close the bite is to your brain. So the higher up the bite is, the faster the incubation period will be because the virus has less distance to travel. 2. What is a neurological symptom of rabies? This can be anything in furious or paralytic rabies. So you could say hydrophobia, paralysis, excessive salivation, violent outbursts, anxiety, depression, etc. And then number 3, what should you do if bitten by an animal you suspect has rabies? 1. Proper wound care. What you should do anytime you're injured, just rinse it off with warm water and soap, and then go to a doctor as soon as possible, where you will get an immunoglobulin shot and you will start your vaccine doses. That's all. Thank you.